Hello and welcome everyone to today's video panel entitled Email Marketing and Email Newsletters 101. My name is Nick Andrews and I will be your host. During today's video panel, we're going to be talking with agents and a vendor about some of the foundational best practices that can help your agency grow using email marketing and email newsletters. Today's video panel is brought to you by the Liberty Mutual Email Builder, a free-to-use tool that can help you build and deploy an email newsletter. If you're interested, reach out to us at agentprograms@libertymutual.com. With that, I'd like to introduce today's panelist. Joining us from RSS Insurance, located in Colorado, please welcome Jenna Mahana. Jenna, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing, Nick?
I am good. And Jenna, how long have you been with RSS and what's your role there?
I am the marketer for RSS Insurance, and I have been with the agency for 2.5 years now.
Jenna, really important question. What's your most used emoji?
Thumbs up. I love the thumbs up emoji. It might be a little nerdy, but it's what I go with.
I like it. Our next panelist joining us from Wheat State Insurance, located in Kansas, it's Kenton Hoffman. Kenton, how you doing?
Good. Yourself, Nick?
I am doing really good. And Kenton, how long have you been with Wheat State Insurance?
We opened up in September of 2012.
Kenton, if you had to sing karaoke, what song would you sing?
I might make some enemies here, but anything sung by Eddie Vedder, because it's pretty easy to match that tone.
I like it. Finally joining us from Constant Contact, he's a vendor. Matt Montoya, welcome.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Matt, how long have you been with Constant Contact?
9 years. 9 years with Constant Contact.
Very, very good. And Matt, in a movie about your life, what actor would be cast in the lead role?
You know, I'm going to have to go honestly here, and only because everybody my entire life has told me that he looks like me or I look like him. I'm not sure how that works. There's a guy named Oliver Platt. If you look him up, he's been in a million movies. Like, you'll go, oh, it's that guy. But my whole life, people go, you look like Oliver Platt. Like, I don't know that I want to look like Oliver Platt.
I'm going to take a note of that. I'm going to have to Google that one after the panel today. So why don't we jump right off? I want to jump into some business metrics. So Kenton, from a new business perspective, what email marketing strategy do you have the most success with?
That is not something I have set up that we can currently track to directly result that we're getting new business from emails themselves. But I can tell you we rapidly have kept growing since we've started that marketing by higher than 25% for the last 4 straight years. And our retention keeps climbing heavily as well. So it's got to be a direct result of that because we're not doing a whole lot of other things marketing-wise.
And Jenna, at RSS, what email marketing strategy have you seen the most success with from a new business and retention perspective?
So we try to be very intentional with our email marketing. So all of our agents have different markets that they focus on. And we really use our email marketing to target those markets. So we're a part of several associations, and we found that we get the best results when we're very intentional and we're using email marketing to target associations that we're already a part of, where we might already have been introduced to a lot of the members of those associations. So we use email marketing to really enhance those relationships and get the message that we want across to them, if that makes sense. So we really try to be very intentional, and we see the best results when we are intentional versus, just blind prospecting when you're finding those emails through an email hunting service. So we really try to be very intentional, and our results have been amazing by using that philosophy.
Okay. And Matt, you work with a lot of small businesses across the country, Constant Contact. What type of email marketing strategies tend to generate new business?
Well, first of all, I gotta give credit where credit is due. Jenna gets a thumbs up emoji on that.
All right.
That's word for word what I would generally say. You got a lot of people look at email marketing as another form of cold calling. I've got this long list of contacts. I'm just going to blast them out. But there's one term that kind of drives email marketers crazy as e-blast or email blast or blast, because it's not a blast. The more targeted you can be, the more segmentation you employ, and that ties right into targeting, breaking that large group into smaller targeted groups, the more personalized you can make it. And I don't mean necessarily having it say their name or contact information. That is a strategy, but more how can you tailor the message to that subsect of your group is critical. And it's really all about relevancy. The more relevant you can make the email, the more ROI you're going to get off of it, because people spend a remarkably small amount of time in an email. And so we want them to understand why they got it and what they're supposed to do with that information very, very quickly. And we also want to make sure that they understand that this is a continuing conversation, that this is a relationship I'm building with you. And when we blast and we throw everything in the kitchen sink into that email and we email everybody at once, will you get an ROI from that? Yeah. I mean, just numbers wise, you'll see a return. But the more targeted and diligent and willful you are with those segments, the bigger the ROI you'll see. So again, perfect job, Jim.
Thank
And
you.
Ken, a quick follow-up question. Do you use Constant Contact or MailChimp or some sort of third-party email marketing system?
We use Constant Contact, and a lot of what was just said we're now starting to get into. So we had some other virtual advertising, so like a whole new website launch and things like that that we kind of put in front of some of this, but we're getting ready to start doing some of the click segmentation. And right now we're sending out a monthly e-newsletter to our current clients. Now, if they no longer do business with us and move somewhere else, as long as they don't block us or block that sender and unsubscribe, we never take them off the list. So hopefully we'll win them back. And as far as email marketing campaigns, we're getting ready to start a new re-engagement letter and, remarket lost clients. So we're going to start going through some of that, and then we try to keep everything as local. So even content, pictures-wise, it's all stuff and houses that you see in Kansas and cars. None of those stucco, big, flashy, like Florida houses and stuff like that. When you don't see any of those, or mountains from Colorado, which I actually even wrote in my notes here. So it's funny that we have somebody from Colorado here on this, but try to keep everything more geared to our people
Local,
here.
right.
Yeah.
And Jenna, are you using Constant Contact or MailChimp, or what email system are you using to actually deploy your emails?
We use Constant Contact as well.
Okay. So
we didn't
We're on
plan
your team,
this.
Matt.
So Matt, you're here from Constant Contact. Why, from a 101 perspective, really high level, what are some of the most basic reasons why you would want to use an email marketing system versus sending out a lot of emails through Outlook?
Well, we'll start on the positive side. So reporting. Every time you send an email out through a tool like Constant Contact, we report who opened it, who clicked on links, and what specifically they clicked on. By learning that information, you're learning who's engaged with you, what they're engaged with, and that gives you some idea on what you can do as follow-up. That follow-up might be an email, it might be a call. You're learning something about that subscriber, and that's critical. But to Kenton's point, you're also learning who's not engaged, and there's an opportunity there as well. I mean, a dirty little secret that's not a dirty little secret is not everybody opens email, not everybody's going to read every email. And there's actually knowledge in knowing who's not engaged, and perhaps you can engage them through another method or through a different kind of email. But if I can get on the negative side, and I generally don't like to do this, but I do have to address it, is I do see a lot of small businesses, including agencies, do bulk email through a tool like Outlook or Gmail. Now the reasoning behind that is it's ubiquitous. Everybody has these tools on their computers. I got this list of folks, I'm going to send it out. You don't want to do that, first of all, because you don't get the reporting, right? So you don't know who opened and who was active in the email, but it's also illegal. So there is a federal law, the CAN-SPAM Act, that says that if you're going to bulk email people, you have to give them the ability to unsubscribe. There's no way to unsubscribe from a Gmail. And so the result there, I mean, the odds of getting in trouble with the federal government with this in the United States, pretty low. Internationally, it can be pretty grave. They have different kinds of spam law. But the reality is, if somebody gets an email from you through Gmail, Outlook, and it's bulk email, right? And the defined bulk email, something that's soliciting for business. If they get an email like that, their recourse is to just mark you as spam. You get enough of those kind of reports on your Gmail account, your Outlook account, then you're in trouble with Google. Then you're in trouble with Microsoft. And that's much harder to get yourself out of. So reporting, number one, keeping you on the right side of the law, number two. And then lastly, it's just easy to make a really professional looking email in a tool like us.
Jenna, earlier you were talking about being intentional. I think that's a really great comment. Could you kind of list out the specific types of emails that you're sending from a goal perspective? Are you doing like leads, prospecting, cross sells, newsletters? What are those specific topics that you're trying to hit on?
Sure. So we do a monthly newsletter as well. Very similar to Kenton. We try to keep everything with a local focus. So we use the newsletter to promote different things that we're doing within the community. We use it a lot to promote our Charity of the Quarter referral program, to get our clients involved in helping us give back to the community. So that's definitely a big focus. And we even have sent out things in the past, not in a newsletter format, but just about, a certain toy drive or something that we're doing, to try and engage our clients and get them to participate in those community efforts. We also use our email marketing to talk about coverage opportunities that we offer. So a recent example, we just got access to a product called the Parametric Hail Solution, and we're part of CNGA out here, so Colorado Nursery and Greenhouses Association. So we used email marketing to send out information on this new product to the association members in case they were interested. So we really use it for everything. So we use it to get across new product information. We use it to cross-sell. We use it to engage our clients in different things we're doing in the community. We use it for a little bit of everything. And it's been very effective, and it's just been really awesome to see, clients get involved in, different things that we're doing and coming together as a community. So we really use it for many different things, and it's a great tool to have.
Thank you, Ken. You mentioned that the newsletter you send out really helps from a retention perspective. Could you talk a little bit about just the concept of relationship marketing and what you're seeing your newsletter do from that perspective?
Well, like I said, try to keep it all local, but then give them either tips or tricks. So as one of them that we just did, and I will probably talk subject lines later, so I'll just hit on this, was like 7 best home inventory apps. So, put an article on that, just to give something back to them as well, but it's still kind of insurance based. So we get to talk a little bit about insurance. So there's a little bit of a product awareness there, and, think things through, look at this. From a retention standpoint, it's just another touch. And, as every study shows, without crossing that obnoxious threshold, the more that you can stay in front of somebody and remind them that you're there, of course, the more referrals you should probably regain, but also that they remember you and that you're there. So if they have any questions, at the bottom of every constant contact email we send out, there's how to get a hold of us, via phone, email, Facebook, Twitter, all the different things. So it helps just open the lines of communication. But I know we started out a couple of years ago with about a 91, and I think our rolling 12 retention right now for the agency is like at a 95.67. So it's doing something.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Matt, from your vantage point at Constant Contact, what can you use email marketing for? Leads, prospecting, cross-sell, regular communication. Well, what's really like just a quick full spectrum overview of the applications of email marketing?
I mean, the reality is all of the above, Nick, but it all points back to the strategy, and it all points back to the audience. The one issue that I generally see is people, especially when they're first starting out, burning through their list really quickly by doing a hard sell. Or their instincts are just to do a hard sell. So promotion, discount, price, latest offer. You have to be careful with that because you've already heard several times, it's relationship marketing. It's all about relevancy. It's all about bringing that local feel into the market. And the reality is, other than a few industries, restaurants being the number one, very few people are in the market right now for any given thing, right? We're all at different parts of the sales cycle. And if you hit people, unless you are extremely diligent and you have really good segmentation data, you know that these prospects or this customer is very, very likely to move to this next step, you have to be careful with really heavy sales and email, because the problem is a lot of people really concern themselves with unsubscribes, and that's a concern. The reality is unsubscribes are actually generally a good thing, because they probably weren't going to do business with you, and they've done you the honor of pulling themselves off your list. So you know that either you're going to need to follow up with them in another way, or it's just a dead lead. It's people just not paying attention. I guarantee you, everybody watching this panel right now, including everybody on the panel, probably have signed up for email from businesses, nonprofits, groups that we care about, that we've spent money with, that we don't pay attention to anymore, because at some point or the other, we were taught that the email was irrelevant. It just wasn't the right time. And they do that enough times, and pretty soon it becomes white noise. Pretty soon we just don't see it in the inbox anymore. And that's the danger, is because when the time is right, when somebody has the need, if they don't have you top of mind, that's a wasted opportunity.
And Kenton, what's your monthly budget for email?
We spend probably about $225 right now. And that's, paying for constant contact as well as the design and stuff like that to get everything done. So I mean, that's labor and everything involved for what we're doing.
Do you have a marketer on staff who's doing that work?
I do not at the moment. I am using a outside company, but they are a small local business as well, and we get to meet every single week so that they really understand our business and the message we're trying to get across, versus corporate ones that all look like it's them.
So Jenna, you mentioned you're paying for a constant contact account, and you also mentioned that you're the marketer on the agency. So you're the one who's doing all the work for email?
Yes, correct.
And Matt, what are you seeing in terms of monthly spend from small businesses in terms of email? Is there a sweet spot number that you should be hitting, or is it all relative?
It's all relative. It's all relative to the size of the organization, the size of the list, what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, not surprisingly, coming from an email marketing company, we're really focused on their ROI. So the average ROI for email marketing is $41 for every dollar you spend, which is remarkably good in marketing. What I really coach small businesses to really think about is the cost of doing nothing, right? So if you have a list of contacts and you have their email addresses and you're not doing anything, that's, to be a little blunt, that's bad business. If you've gained, and we're going to just focus on leads in this part, but if we think about leads and we've gotten their email address, however we've gotten their email address, whether that was a light touch, an interaction at some sort of business expo or something of that nature, if we've gotten that lead and we're just sitting on it in a digital Rolodex, it's that the length of time we wait to interact with that lead is just costing us money. And so one thing I coach folks to do is really quantify how much that list might be worth. Take a look at your list of leads, if you have email addresses, and take that number and multiply it times the average spend somebody spends with you, and look at how much you're missing out. I mean, it can be a lot of money just sitting dormant, waiting to be tapped, but for whatever reason, people aren't ready to jump.
And Matt, I just want to stay with you for a second. If you happen to know, could you just kind of rattle off what are some actual percentages? What are some baseline metrics for open rates, click-through rates that people should be comparing to?
For the insurance industry, you want to see an open rate around 16.7%. That's the industry average. And you want to see a click-through rate of around 7.49%. But as I alluded to before, a lot of folks patting themselves on the back, open rate, yay, I'm doing good. open rate matters. And the way that it matters with subject line is actually pretty tied together. So if you see your open rate climbing or you see your open rate spike, that's probably because of your subject line, if not solely because of your subject line. So if you're watching that open rate and you're seeing it up or down, that's telling you something about how your subject line performed. But it is not the ultimate metric, and the reason for that is because of the way open rates are tracked. So open rates are tracked not just by Constant Contact, but everyone in our industry by hiding a 1 pixel by 1 pixel image inside every email. And when the image is shown, that counts as an open. Well, plenty of people have their images blocked. You may not have the image shown, and so you may have gotten an open and people didn't actually open it. Conversely, people have previews in their inbox. So they could be zipping up and down their inbox without actually looking at the email, and you get an open. But if we really think about open rate, while it's valuable to know for subject line, it's not that valuable to know for engagement, because they could have opened it and immediately closed it. They could have opened it and loved it. We don't know unless they click. Click proves they got it. Click proves they found something of interest, and click proves what specifically they found of interest. And so paying attention to that 7.49 click-through rate for in the insurance industry is really critical.
I'm going to round it up to 8%. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say that's, I strive for accuracy, Nick.
Thank you. So Jenna, do you know your click-through rate?
Yes, I would say our average click-through rate is about 10%.
And Kenton, do you know your click-through rate?
Yeah, could you round to 7.5? Because I'm already hitting short of that even.
We'll round down.
It varies every. It varies every email. The highest I think I've probably seen is about a 5 or 7% on the click-through rate. But we've got a lot of 1 and 2 percentages out there. But the open rate we're setting at a 35. So I don't. And again, this is just on the e-newsletter. I mean, I just looked at, we started a birthday program because of COVID. Instead of doing those, mailing out a actual birthday card like we used to, where you've got to stamp and lick the envelope, stuff like that. We started running an automation system through Constant Contact, and we have anywhere between a 50 to 75% open and click-through rate. I don't really know what they're clicking on, to be honest with you, because it was just supposed to be some birthdays and tell them happy birthday, but the click rate on those is really high.
That's awesome.
So I want to move on to design for a couple questions here. So Kenton, how did you arrive at your emails design, and are you going into the analytics and looking at what spots of your email are getting more clicks than other, and do you tweak the design accordingly to try to make improvements?
Again, that's something we're starting to do, especially now that Constant Contact is, I don't know how recent it is, but I've recently found out about the click segmentation. So we'll be able to track what is getting certain viewers and then dump them in another list. So then if we're going to touch back on that, then we can get a little bit more targeted like Jenna is and only send this type of email out to that person. But the main basic thing that we try to do when we create our emails is sales is last. It's more of the community, something current event. So, we try to have a taco truck here every so often. So invite people over to do that and just get out and about. COVID, unfortunately, has shut that down, but we're getting ready to finally reopen that up this Friday. They'll finally be back this year. Then it's our referral program, and that's in every single email, and hitting on that, and making sure we put in a big announcement of the quarterly charity for that quarter whenever we change it. And then there's always something on the sales side of it. So like the one was keeping your garage in order, how to do that, and making sure that you got some of the coverages that you need, because you may have a lot more personal property or tools and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily asking them for the business, but just re-engaging that thought of I've never even thought about the stuff out there, because most people talk about personal property, they think of their clothes and dishes and furniture and TVs and stuff like that, but there's a lot of money in people's garages sometimes.
And Jenna, how do you approach design?
So our approach is definitely very similar to Kenton's. We try to keep community related items towards the top of the email, and then, insurance related information towards the bottom, right? And we feel that that really engages people, and gets them to want to find out more about what we're doing in the community, how we're helping the community. We also try to use a lot of pictures, so it's visually pleasing, it's not so boring. We also use a lot of pictures of like our team doing things out in the community, or celebrating someone's accomplishment, whether it's getting a certain designation or anything like that. So we really try to showcase things that our team's doing, use a lot of images, and really put the focus on, community, businesses in our community, spotlighting businesses and different things that people are doing.
And Matt, could you touch on email design and layout, and what are some things people should be thinking about from that perspective?
Thumbs up to Ken and Jenna on their designs. Everything they've said is spot on so far. I would encourage everybody to think mobile first. So average open rate is about 55%. So we want to make sure that we're thinking mobile first. And when we think mobile first, we want to think brevity. So we want to think our content, we want to keep it relatively short. So you want to have no more than about 20 lines of text overall. You can go a little over, you can go a little under, but you want to keep it around that sweet spot. That's about you can do that up in paragraphs, so you can break up the 3 paragraphs, but you want to keep it about 20 lines of text overall. You want to keep your images to about no more than 3. Now that's not including your logo. Really, the thing we need to keep in mind is that on a PC, Mac, tablet, people are going to be spending anywhere between 20 and 30 seconds with an email. On a mobile device, that's 10 seconds. And so taking a step back and going, okay, well, can people understand the point of this email in 10 seconds? Now, if you hook them in those 10 seconds, will they spend more time? Yeah, absolutely. But we got to hook them in those 10 seconds. And so we want to make sure we don't overwhelm them with so much information. And I bet everybody here has done that. You get an email, you start scrolling, done. And that's, 3 seconds. And we come back to relevancy, and we come back to keeping that email as tied to that person as possible, and making sure that it's communicating to them a relationship. We need to make sure that we can build that relationship, and we have to keep that email as tight as possible. Keeping your content as simple as possible is critical.
So Matt, you mentioned trying to hook them in that first 10 seconds, and once you hook them, what do you want them to do? What's like a call to action? What are some buttons? Is it a button? Is it a link? What's that call to action best practice look like?
Well, the best practice is use a button. Buttons get a higher penetration. Well, actually, as far as click-throughs, let me actually define something really quickly. So just because this is kind of a 101. A lot of people are really obsessed with open rate, and open rate certainly does matter. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about some open rate strategies, but just to define it, it's click rate is what we really want. We want the click, and the click tells us not only that they opened it, but tells us specifically what they found of value. Those are the most engaged people. And so a call to action is really critical, because that's what's going to encourage the click. So a button gets high click-through rates. An image gets the highest click-through rates. So if you link an image, you're gonna definitely see some more traffic. And the reason for that is mobile design. So I have fat fingers. It's a lot easier for me to click on a picture than a little hyperlink. So utilizing images and buttons are definitely a way to get a higher click-through rate. The call to action, it's going to be varied towards whatever the purpose of the email is. But one thing we found in our studies is that the generic click here gets some of the lowest click-through rates as possible. You want to use something like, I want to get this report. I want to learn more about home inventory. I want to learn how to protect my garage or inventory my garage. If you kind of phrase the call to action that way, you're more likely to suck them in, because now they're thinking about how they need to inventory their garage, how they've never thought about it. But the read more, learn more, those generally get very small click-through rates.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's good to know. I'm learning today. This is awesome. And Ken, what about you? What tends to get the most click-through rates, or what's that call to action that tends to get the clicks in your emails?
Well, I'm going to have to say the opposite of what he said, unfortunately, but it's maybe something to do with the text that we're doing or the demographics. But we try to limit our call to actions to at least 3, no more than that in an email. And we've seen that the buttons seem to do a little less in our area than just putting it in a text form. Now, when I say buttons, they may have been talking about like the click here button that you're talking about, but we're always rephrasing something that was just in that message that is then a picture or a clickable link. But just your standardized button, which is what the national average says does better. Ours doesn't in that particular deal.
Interesting.
But part of that may be, and I want to just ask Matthew if I understood him correctly. When you say mobile 55% open rate, are you saying that out of your open rate percentages? So if you have a 35% open rate on your emails,
Mm-hmm.
are you saying 55% of them should be usually mobile?
On average. Now, that's going to vary. I mean, you made an excellent point, Ken. Every market's different, right? So one thing that's tricky for me in talking to a national audience is what might be great here may change there. But yes, that would be 55% on average, and that's lumping in every industry, is going to be opening a email on a mobile device.
And that may be why we have a little bit different luck on that, because our actually open data rate is 64% still PC and 34% mobile. And then on the click through, it's 54% on a desktop and 45 on mobile. So
that's interesting.
The fact that you're tracking that, though, that's another thumbs up. Looking at the metrics and coming back to the question Nick brought up about why use a tool like us is you get that reporting. And so you can pivot what you're doing from a design standpoint and from a messaging standpoint to fit your audience. So that's excellent work, because learning that, okay, maybe Matt's suggestion on using buttons is great for the majority somewhere else in the country, but for my market, my demographic, my users, my subscribers, they really prefer opening their email on a PC, and we're going to make sure we communicate to them in a way that's applicable to them.
And Jenna, what gets clicks in your emails?
Pictures and buttons, kind of with what Matt was saying, but I thought it was really interesting what you said, Matt, about making the call to action more interesting. I'm definitely guilty of a click here or a read more, so I'm definitely going to try to make those call to actions more interesting moving forward. But we definitely see the best results with linked pictures and buttons, absolutely.
One thing I want everybody to keep in mind is, when in doubt, test it out. So take your list, cut it into a smaller test list, try one way with half the list, one way with the other half of the list. Make sure you only alter one thing. So this time we're going to use a button for half the list. This time we're going to use a text link for this half of the list. Your audience will tell you what to do. And that way you kind of remove two pieces. One is doubt and worry that you're doing the right thing. But two, you're also confirming what you think is right, and that's also valuable. A/B split testing is what I just described. That's the best way to know your audience.
Right.
So Jenna, I want to stay with you for a second and jump to subject lines. What subject line do you use for different types of emails? Could you just talk us through your thought process on subject lines?
I guess it depends on what type of email we're sending out, because we use email marketing for so many different types of things. Trying to think of a title that we just use. We try to make it interesting, just short, and attention grabbing. Always very short, though. We want the message just to be clear and concise. So our subject lines are always pretty short, to the point, and we try to just kind of quickly grab them. So always just short and concise, if that helps.
It does, thank you. And Ken, what's your subject line?
Pretty much the same as what she just said. I had actually made a note of short and sweet. And we try to limit it to about 40 characters. And then we try to, we treat it like a movie trailer. So we're just trying to give them a taste or a tease of what is actually going to be in there, and make sure that it has, some relevance to what the email is about. Like the one about keeping your garage in order, it actually said, which got me in trouble because my wife said, "You're going to send me an email when your garage looks like that." It said, "Are you ashamed to open your garage door around your neighbors?" And of course I caught, she's like, "You seriously marketed an email like that when your garage looks like this?" But it doesn't anymore. Since that email came out, we've got our garage in order. But article for the 7 best, there's an app for that, was the one with the 7 best home inventory app. So we just try to keep it short, sweet, and then relatable to part of the article.
And Matt, I want to ask you the same question, but with a little negative spin on it. So, what are the top subject line mistakes? What are things that people should absolutely avoid? Are there words? Are there characters or phrases?
First of all, our panelists, my fellow panelists, shared the best practice, which is keep short and sweet. 40 characters, no more than about 4 to 7 words. So if we go the negative, it's writing a whole, long subject line. That's just going to be cut off. And if people are only spending a few seconds in an email, imagine how quickly they're zipping through their inbox. So we're looking for something to capture their attention. Another bad practice that we see, and again, I need to stress that every list is different and every location is different, but a typical bad practice is repeating the same subject line time after time after time after time. So your this agency e-blast, using that same subject line every time is not giving people an incentive to open the email, and so we want to watch out for that. Additionally, another model that we see that's generally has low open rates is the month followed by the word newsletter, right? So you'll say something like, my agency's June newsletter, my agency's July newsletter. Well, there's a couple of problems with that. One, people are going to see the name of the agency right above it in the sender's name. If you look at inbox, you see the from. They're going to see it right there. So we're just wasting space telling people something that's redundant. Two, people are smart. They know what month it is. We're just wasting their time. And lastly, while it's perfectly okay internally to call your newsletter a newsletter or call it inside the email a newsletter, generally newsletter in the subject line produces really low results. Because if we were all here in person, I'll even ask everybody here on the panel, when you hear the word newsletter, what immediately comes to mind? Yeah, time,
News.
right? Time. A lot of people, imagine, oh, I'm gonna have to spend a long time reading this lengthy thing, and that's something that people don't want to invest in. So the examples everybody shared were spot on. In fact, I want to call out Kenton for using the word your. One really great technique is to use you or your in your subject line, because now you put the ownership of the issue, the problem, the solution into the mind of the subscriber, and now they're thinking about how, well, in Kenton's case, they're thinking about their garage, and that's where we want them. So using that is really critical. And another example he shared before was numbers, using 3, 5, 7. That's suggesting to people that here's something they want, and you don't have to spend a long time accessing it. And that's 2 brilliant strategies.
Often are you tweaking subject lines? And Matt, how often should be people looking at that? And is it every email you mentioned you shouldn't use the same subject line over? What does that strategy look like to optimize your open rates?
Generally, you want to try to change it up as often as you can, as long as your content is falling in line with that subject line. You don't want to be, creativity really matters here because you're trying to grab somebody's attention really quickly, but you don't want to go to that well too often because it eventually may peter out. And 2, what I generally see is that people fall into that same routine. So, if this worked before, I'm just going to keep doing that. Well, now we're kind of losing the power of it grabbing people's attention. I suggest, it's really hard for me to tell real small businesses that they need to change it every time, but that would be a best practice. I do respect that writing a subject line creatively is a challenge. So just challenge yourself to try to be as creative as you can, as often as you can. One thing, Nick, we're going to share with everybody is a one-pager on some ideas for subject lines. And one thing that you definitely want to do is write your subject line last. A lot of people tend to write it first. Wait till you get the whole idea of the email out, and then take a step back, look at some best practices, get your creative juices flowing. Often it doesn't have to be rocket science, just including, if you're going to say something, try including the word you or your in there. If you're going to say something, try writing it as a question. Questions are really powerful subject line because the answer can only be found in the email itself. So it doesn't require a master's in English for you to come up with something creative, but it does require you to kind of get out of the rut and change things up a little bit.
And Kenton, you touched on this earlier, but including your agency's referral program, that's the question I'm looking at right now. Do you use an email newsletter that includes your referral program? So if you touch on the importance of including a referral program in your agency's newsletter.
Absolutely. It's in every single one of them. We actually, let me double check this. Community Matters is what we've named it. We've even had them do our own artwork, so there's a clickable logo on there. It's on the website. It's always spelled out very clearly with the further instructions on there. And we just started this literally this month. We weren't even marketing it yet. We already had one. Is we're trying to use that now as a lead generation, for lack of better words, is now you can submit a referral through our website. So if you click on that link now, it'll take you to our website, throw up a form real quick where you can put in your first name, last name, email address, and who you're referring over. And then as long as we can get a hold of them to run a full accurate quote, it'll still count towards the charity and the gift card program. So we've just changed that to try to get them to engage into that even that much more. So we'll see what that does. But yeah, it is in every single, other than the birthday cards, probably every form of communication we do has something about the referral program in it.
I love that. And Jenna, I want to ask you the same question. Do you use an email newsletter that includes your agency's referral program?
Yes, there is typically something about our referral program in every newsletter. We volunteer with our charity of the quarter every quarter. So whether it's, about our volunteer day, what we were doing, something like that. So that'll be a whole post. And then we always link everything up so that they can be taken to our website where it talks in more detail about our charity of the quarter referral program. So it's a little different every time, but we always mention it in every newsletter.